It's time once again for Ottawa Race Weekend. Welcome to our coverage of the 10K race on this Saturday night in Ottawa. It is a cool night. It is a little bit humid. Thousands of runners are getting ready to participate in the 10K. The 10K tonight. They will start in downtown Ottawa, travel south on Elgin Street, and then join the route along the canal, along the Queen Elizabeth Driveway, along the Rideau Canal here. A beautiful route to run in Ottawa, and they will run to Dow's Lake. This is a route that many runners take on a regular basis through the streets of Ottawa as they are training for Ottawa Race Weekend. They will cross over and then come back on the Colonel By Drive side of the Rideau Canal, and you can see they will pass the 8K mark, cross where the Queensway is, cross over, and then come into the finish on the Queen Elizabeth side. They cross over on Pretoria Bridge and then come in on the Queen Elizabeth Drive side to the finish line for all the events here where we are located, where we will be broadcasting from today and tomorrow. Here are the course records in the 10K. Let's take a look a little more closely now at who some of the men are in the elite race that's happening in the 10K, including some of the Canadians who are going to be running. And you mentioned Bernard Camelli. 27:10 is his personal best time. Tell us about some of these other athletes, Rob.
Yeah, well, Camelli's time was set on the roads. Berta, the 19-year-old from Ethiopia, he's got a PB of 27:08. That's on the track over 10,000 metres. Ziani has won here in Ottawa before. He was victorious in 2016. He's now a full-time athlete. Abraham Kipyatic. Well, Kipyatic is another one of the Kenyans, along with Camelli, who's based in Japan. And if Camelli is going to set a really, really quick time, he's going to need help, and I think that help might come from Abraham Kipyatic. Bernard Ngeno, he's been around a little while, despite the fact that he's only 22. Steve Boyd attempting to roll back the years in style. He's 54. We've got Kipsang Ezekiel, Evan Esselink. And I think one of the other added dimensions of this race, I know it's something that John Halverson, and you're involved with the organising committee, it's something that you guys are rightly proud of, that this doubles up as the Canadian National Championships, and that's a fantastic
field. Here's a look at the women to watch in this race. We'll talk about the Canadian women in a moment. There's the potential for quite a race between Natasha Wodak and Rachel Cliff for the women's title for Canada, but let's talk about the women who are likely to be challenging the top men for this gender challenge.
Yeah, I think the favourite here is Edith Chalimo. She's, by looking at that, you're only looking at a 3-second gap between her personal best and that of Aliyah Mohammed. But when you look at the experience that Edith Chalimo has got, I think she'll be the overwhelming favourite for this one. She is one of the fastest half marathon runners in history, and that's the key to believing how fast she can run here today, because she ran through 10K en route to her half marathon PB, only 1 second slower than Gladys Chirono's course record here. So if she can run 30:56 on her way to a world-leading half marathon, then if that 10K is the finish line as opposed to halfway through her run, she really could do something very, very special. I wonder whether she'll need some help. I wonder whether she'll be a little bit conservative in the early stages, as it is a little bit humid, although it's getting cooler as the early evening draws on. For me, Chalimo is the big favourite there. Gladys Kiamani, 31:15, not as consistent as Chalimo. And then, as you've already indicated, Wodak against Cliff is a really, really interesting race. I'm up for that, and I'm not Canadian.
There is a little sunshine over some parts of the course. It's been overcast, and I should point out that the weather forecast a few days ago was actually for a lot more rain this weekend, tonight and tomorrow, for the 10K and the marathon. We're about to get underway. Here we go in the women's 10K at Ottawa Race Weekend. The elite women are underway, making a turn onto Elgin Street now, and very soon they'll be turning again and heading towards the Rideau Canal, where they will travel along the Queen Elizabeth Driveway. It's been hotter than this on Saturday night of race weekend in Ottawa. You've run in some hot conditions here before, Eric.
Yeah, when the sun's not out, as it's not really right now, that helps a lot to you don't get the radiant heat on you.
Quite a nice crowd out. The weather, of course, has an impact on that as well. Eric, you and I were just in Boston a few weeks ago running the marathon there, and the Boston crowds are so wonderful and supportive, and on that particular day when the weather was miserable, I was amazed there was anyone out at all, but the crowds were not as big as they have been for other Boston marathons on nicer days, so the weather is certainly a factor in terms of crowd support.
And that was a total contrast to London, which we had just about the hottest London marathon on record.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely packed. People going out, having a few pints, getting involved in the spirit of the race. It's a really well-supported event, even in the rain usually. But in those blistering conditions a month or so ago, we had hundreds of thousands on the streets of the capital. But this is a fantastically well-supported race, this 10k. There can't be many 10k road races around the world that have more spectators than this. That was a brilliant sight when they turned left past the town hall. You know, you've got 10 deep on both sides of the road. Must give you a great lift in the early stages.
I mean, this whole event, it's a real race weekend, and I think that's what unique about the Ottawa race weekend is that it's a 2-day event, and the Sunday athletes that are racing get into the Saturday races on Saturday night, and we enjoy it as athletes, and now as a spectator, I'm enjoying it.
So you can see Gladys Kimena, who is in the blue clothing in the center of your screen right now. She is leading the way right now. There are a few other athletes who are keeping with her, but already it's down to a small handful of runners from very early on. That group of maybe 10 or 20 runners, it's down to maybe 6 that are at the front of the pack here, Rob.
Yes, they're clearly not hanging around. There's Chalimo just at the back of that group. We've got a couple of monitors. There's Chalimo just in the center of your picture there, running along in 4th place with Angela Tanui just to her left-hand side, to our right. So they're really deciding to have a go here. Gladys Kimena, 31:15. She won the Paderborn 10k last year. She's part of the Run Czech group. There's a really vibrant distance running community in the Czech Republic. She's one of them. Trains with Vivian Chariot, who won the London Marathon in fine style a month or so ago in those brutal conditions. So she's clearly feeling confident, but already, as you said, Mark, we have a group of 4 and then 3 or 4 meters back to 3 trying to tag onto the back. So that tells you that this could be fast, and we'll be watching out for those kilometer splits as and when we get close.
That lead group of 4 runners appears to be Edith Chalimo, Gladys Kimena, Alia Mohammed, and Angela Tanui in that lead group. And now we see the men getting underway along with the rest of the field. So the elite men are at the front of this huge group of runners, thousands and thousands of runners, people who have been training for weeks to be part of the 10K at Ottawa Race Weekend. Some very inspiring stories of people who have overcome incredible odds, illnesses, injuries, people who are raising money for charity at this year's event. Some very inspiring runners in this group of several thousand who are participating in the 10K at Ottawa Race Weekend. And look, that looks like a really strong pace that's being set right off the bat. You don't normally see the effort. Sometimes among the elite men, particularly the African runners, it looks so effortless, but we're seeing some real movement here at the front of the pack.
Well, you don't often see a distance race, albeit 10K, as opposed to a marathon, where they are single file right from the very beginning.
And that's Bernard Nagano right at the front of the pack.
It is, and I think alongside him, or just behind him, is Abraham Kipyatic. Yep. So those are the first 2, and we'll be watching to see whether Bernard Kameli closes that gap down. Well, we said that Kameli couldn't do it all on his own, and my goodness me, the gauntlet has been laid down in the early stages here by Bernard Nagano, and Gano's PB is 27:45, so he's some way shy of the likes of Berta, the Ethiopian, and Kameli, the man who's been giving it the big talk about running sub-27. It's very unusual to see 2 men off the front this early with less than 2 minutes run.
Yeah. only now 2 minutes into this race, and already 2 athletes are at the front, and you can see many other athletes are still crossing the start line of the Ottawa 10K. Eric, are you surprised to see 2 runners breaking away that quickly?
When it's always interesting when you have many reasons to run the race, and they have the time, they have the placing, they have the team challenge, they have the gender challenge. So I think we're seeing that out there, that they're going for time right now. They're thinking that tonight's the night to run fast.
And talk a little bit about the psychology of this, because I think to non-runners and even to some amateur runners, if you have the capacity to put in a certain time, why does it matter whether you're running with somebody else? But it does. It does. That is a factor, and it's hard to run a consistent pace by yourself and a fast pace by yourself without others being part of the mix, right?
Yeah, you know, when you have someone else there to help you out with the pacing, it takes a little bit of energy that normally we go in towards, am I on pace, and just to follow them for a little bit, take a break from thinking about it, and just physically run. And then you can share some of that work. So, you know, you hear a lot of people talk about racing is mental, and that's one part where you can get a break from mentally, you know, pushing out there.
And look, you can see that Nagano is now by himself at the front of the pack. There are other athletes right behind him, including Abraham Kipyatic, but he's by himself at the front of the pack with a little bit of a gap, a few meters there. You saw that just a moment ago when we had the split screen, that the group of 4 women continues to lead in the 10K. They've stuck together as a group, those 4 athletes: Edith Chalemo, Gladys Kamena, Alia Mohammed, and Angela Tanui. But the men, it's being led right now by Bernard Nagano. And this is one of those questions you always ask the question at this point, did he go out too soon? Can he maintain this pace, or is it going to fall apart later on in the race and others will catch up with him?
It looks like Rachel Cliff is hanging on to the back of the chase pack of a couple, 2 or 3 runners behind those front 4. So that's a strong start for her.
Yeah, she's running so well, having broken her 5 and 10,000 meter PBs in recent weeks. And we were talking just before we went on air about that great half marathon PB and national record, just a shade outside 70 minutes. But that is so bold from Bernard Nagano. And actually, compared to some of the other Kenyans that you watch, he has quite an ungainly style, doesn't he? It's not as smooth as you see from some of the other Kenyans. It looks a little bit awkward, and his stride is very short.
He's doing a bit of rocking, which is not the most efficient, but it's working for him right now.
But I can't help feeling that he's just gone too hard. He's very young and he's very talented. He's at the beginning of his road racing journey, coached by Paul Koech, the 3rd fastest steeplechaser in history, a fantastic athlete. So, he's got all the potential, but he's very inexperienced in contrast to some of the men just behind him. He really has put the hammer down very, very early on, and you can see a group of 4 just beginning to gather behind him. From a bravery point of view, you always want to see this kind of bold tactic rewarded. Long way to go here, though, and I just hope he's saved something for the last couple of K.
And Eric, if you're in that next group of athletes, what are you thinking as you see Nagano ahead of you by 10 or 20 meters?
They know who he is, and they know that they want to keep him in sight, and they're probably using him for a bit of pacing. But they're gonna be okay with giving him a bit of room. They have a pack to run with, and they're gonna hopefully roll. Like, they're hoping that they'll catch up to him in the next couple kilometers.
There is a bit of a breeze tonight, which can have a cooling effect. I don't think the wind's too strong, but you mentioned before, Eric, that often that breeze is in your face at the end of the race. It feels like here at the finish line, the breeze will be behind the runners, at least the breeze that I'm feeling right now. That
would be a treat. It would only give the runners an extra bit of encouragement once they, if they are feeling a bit of headwind right now and they make the turn and get that tailwind. It'll certainly help them.
All right, so we have Bernard Nagano of Kenya leading the men's field in the 10K, a group of 4 women leading the women's elite race. Remember, the elite women started 3 minutes and 40 seconds before the men. We're going to see if Nagano and the other men can catch up to this group of 4 runners. And you can see that in the blue, in the middle of your screen, is Gladys Kamena. On the left of your screen is Alia Mohammed. And is that Rachel Cliff in the background behind them?
I believe so, and I believe it's Laura Thweet from the United States that she is running with, and that's great for Rachel to have somebody to run with back there. And as a chase pack, they are certainly using the front runners, and it's impressive that they're not getting too far ahead.
I'm assuming it is Rachel Cliff because there's a bicycle there, and there would be a bike following the top Canadian woman.
Okay.
So
Yep.
I'm thinking that's what's going on there. It's obviously difficult for us to see because she's in a group behind the other runners. But that would explain why there's somebody on a bicycle so close by. So there are the lead women. And you know, you can see here, Rob, the running style that we're used to seeing in the African athletes who are at the front of the pack. And now, look, the gap has already closed on Ngeno as we go back to the men.
Yeah, the 4 women looked fairly comfortable there, and they'll have to work together. Ngeno has used up a lot of energy there going off the front, and actually I noticed that he was quite slow to move across to the other side of the road when the course just changed direction a little bit. There's Kameli right at the front,
And Berta.
so Kameli,
and you can see them passing some of the women who started 3 minutes and 40 seconds before them. Some of the basically the back of the pack of the elite women, the men have already passed now, just almost 9 minutes into the race. But the lead women are well ahead of them still at this point.
I think Ngeno may well have used unnecessary amounts of energy there. Certainly you'd be feeling more comfortable if you were Bernard Kameli, who's been running a little more steadily, 10-15 meters or so behind. Still a long way to go, but Ngeno, well, he's gone to the front again. He's decided to take it on again. Usually, Eric, when someone has a lead, they get closed down, you never see them again, or they sit in the pack metaphorically licking their wounds. But he's clearly decided he's going to try and boss this race, and he's tried to go back to the front again.
If it's in your head, you like running out front, and you have that opportunity, and it's only a couple more steps to speed up to be in the front, then yeah, you do that as a runner. I mean, for myself, I wouldn't mind tucking in there for a little bit.
And that looks to me, Mark, as though it may well be Ziani, the former champion, who's up on Kameli's shoulder. Very, very good athlete.
Yeah, there's 5 men there. The 3 at the front are Ngeno, Kameli, and Berta. And it's hard to tell who's in behind them there, but we'll figure that out in the next few minutes. Meanwhile, still a group of 4 women. It looked as they came through the water station like it had broken up a bit, but that was just because they were on different sides of the course as they took on some nutrition. Eric, do you typically take in any water when you're running a 10K? I know there are some athletes who don't even bother because they're only going to be out there for 30-35 minutes.
When it's warm like this, I find my throat gets a little dry, so I'll take some water just to splash some water on my face and drink just a little bit. But I'm not looking to get any fluids in.
So it's not about actually processing anything. It's just about...
No, they all have enough fluids that they've consumed before the race to get them to the finish line. It's more about a comfort and maybe getting a little refreshed with some water.
So it looks like 2 of the men, Berta and Kameli, are moving to the front here. But Ngeno is hanging on. Or trying to, anyway.
Yeah, these 2 now look as though they're set for a battle royal as they edge their way towards, slowly and surely, the halfway stage. Berta is a great athlete. Last year he ran the World Championship 10,000 meters and finished 10th. That was the 11th fastest time in history by a junior athlete. He's also run inside the hour for the half marathon. So both Berta, the sub 60-minute half marathon runner, and Kameli, who's also run a 59.47, those 2, the class in the field, now that The heroics of Ngano seem to have subsided. Those two turning that into a big duel, and we have movement here in this women's race as they edge towards the halfway stage. Suddenly 4 have become 2.5 because we've got a leading duo, and the third athlete has allowed a couple of meters to grow and needs to work very hard to stay on top.
The women are crossing the Bronson Avenue Bridge. They will turn back down onto the route alongside the Rideau Canal here in Ottawa in just a moment. And they will be on Colonel By Drive as they head back towards downtown Ottawa and towards the finish line. Meanwhile, you can see the elite men now are turning off of Queen Elizabeth Drive and are heading towards Bronson as well. They're still several hundred meters behind, but closing the gap on the lead women.
They seem to be pulling away from Ngano as well, as we watch one or two of the elite women beginning to get reeled in from that 3-minute 40 head start. Third athlete here, just about hanging on, but she cannot afford that gap to grow any bigger. It's that old elastic band metaphor, isn't it, from Bannister and Landy in the Commonwealth Games back in the 50s.
And you can see the gap is growing a little bit. It is Gladys Kamena who's at the back there. I think that's Alia Mohammed on the right. And I believe it is Edith Chilimo on the left.
So all of a sudden, we have 2 leading the women's race and 2 leading the men's.
You can see the men are on the bridge now, where we just saw the lead women a couple of minutes ago. So the gap started out at 3 minutes and 40 seconds. It's a lot less than that now.
Berta is the taller of the 2 figures on the left. The Ethiopian, still just a teenager. Second in Ethiopian national championships over 10,000 meters on the track. So his speed is looking good as he heads towards the track season. Be fascinating to see how he goes here against Kameli. He has run 27:08, Berta, but it was on the track in that scorching 10,000 meter final in London last year. He's yet to replicate that kind of time on the roads.
You can see the men continue to pass more and more of the elite women. Eric, what do you think of this gender challenge and the added dynamic that it creates?
So right now, everybody we're watching, with it being a scoring on their team, they're all running for placing right now. So it adds extra incentive for each one. You always want to place well out there, but now they're running for their team as well. So even if they're not having the race that they had really hoped for, they're still on part of a team, and their score counts. So they'll be looking behind them a little bit more today, I think.
Edith Chilimo and Alia Mohammed are the leaders on the women's side, and it is Bernard Kameli and Damlak Berta leading on the men's side.
Kamena now has been dropped. She hasn't been completely isolated yet, but that is going to take a massive comeback for her to close that gap, because the momentum is moving away from her and moving towards the 2 women up ahead on the course. Chilimo would arguably be the favourite out of these 2, especially when you bear in mind how fast she ran through 10k en route to one of the fastest half marathons we've ever seen. But fair play to Alia Mohammed, Asian Games champion 4 years ago. She's Ethiopian, but she represents the United Arab Emirates, as we see so often. Athletes swapping passports, although the president of the IAAF, Sebastian Coe, is supposedly clamping down on that a little bit. However, she still lives in Ethiopia, but she does represent the United Arab Emirates. But Chilimo tucking in behind her at the moment.
It looks like Canadian Rachel Cliff and then American Laura Thweet are in 4th and 5th right now. So if they are able to make up a little bit more ground, they could potentially move into the medals.
Eric, would you rather be chasing or feeling the heat of runners coming up from behind you in this sort of gender gap kind of race?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably chasing a bit more. I can gauge where, bypassing some of the women, where some of the women are in the rest of the field. So, yeah, if these women do pull it off to finish ahead of the men, give them full credit for having really nobody ahead of them to keep their eyes on.
I suspect most people would give the same answer, just because you know what you're dealing with when you're chasing. When you're running at the front and you know that somebody started 3 minutes and 40 seconds behind you, you don't know. Are they having a great race? Do I push hard and try to hold them off, and then maybe I blow up in the final kilometer, or do I hold it steady and then discover I should have gone harder? It's too many unknowns.
The caveat to that is that the women do get 3 minutes and 40 seconds, which in my opinion is a lot of time. So the guys are going to have to stay on it. So maybe the guys will have to work harder in terms of running faster to stay ahead. But I think the women have a tougher job being in front mentally.
Well, you can hear the crowd support.
Yeah, they've added half a minute to the gap that the men have to close down. You could just tell Kameli, the men on the left of picture, women on the right, Chalimo with Mohammed. Just a brief flash there of 15:33, the time for the leading women at halfway. So just around about the 31-minute mark, which would have them just outside Gladys Chirono's long-standing course record of 30:56. So they do have the potential, if those times that we saw briefly were accurate at 15:33, there they are again, they do potentially stand a chance of taking that course record belonging to Gladys Chirono, but it's going to need to be a really solid second half of the race.
So you can see at 5K, Gladys Kamena was with Chalimo and Mohammed. She is not anymore. She has dropped back, and it is just Chalimo and Mohammed at the front of the race. They seem for now content to be running together. We'll see whether one of them makes a break as we get deeper into the race now.
You see Rachel Cliff's 5K split there, 15:46. That's on a very, very quick pace. That's 31:32 pace, which would be, I believe, a national record on the roads.
So a minute faster than her personal best.
Yeah, so very, very, very quick.
Yeah, minute's a long time in the 10K.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll see if she can maintain that.
It's not easy to run faster on the roads than on the track, and that would be faster than Rachel has run on the track as well.
Yeah, she ran 31:56, I think, for a PB in Palo Alto at the start of May. So she really is running well at the moment, and there'll be high hopes amongst the Canadians watching that she can keep that going. Now, a breakaway here, and this is surprising. This is Angelac Berta, who's moved ahead of Bernard Kameli. Kameli has been dropped instantly by this injection of pace, and Berta, still just a teenager, only just 19 years of age, second in the Delhi half marathon. I was there commentating on that race. It was a brilliant run for 59:51 in typically sweltering conditions in Delhi. He has pulled away, and quite emphatically, I think, considering the stage of race we're at, and he's left Kameli with some questions to answer. And at the moment, the man who was talking about running sub 27 before the race began is not finding the answers. It's the Ethiopian teenager in the driving seat here.
And very quickly, Berta has put some distance between himself and Kameli at the front of the men's race in the Ottawa 10K. At the same time, we've got a race between two women, and it looks like Alia Mohammed has gone a little bit in front in the women's race of Edith Chalimo. We'll show you that in a moment, but that's quite a gap that has opened up in a very short period of time there.
Yeah, it really is.
Here's an opportunity to see not just the lead man, the two lead women, but also the lead Canadian in the race.
I think that singlet might be deceiving the cameraman, because Bernard there is wearing a Canadian singlet, but he's not Canadian. He's Kenyan. So
Okay.
Yeah, I believe he just picked that singlet up yesterday, is what I heard his roommate tell me. He wanted to wear a Canadian singlet running in Canada.
Well, it certainly means he'll get plenty of support when he heads towards the finish line.
That's what I was thinking, yes.
Not a bad tactic.
Yep.
So there is Endemlak Berta, 19-year-old Ethiopian, who is at the front of the men's race.
This is a really good move from Berta if he can keep this going. We've seen Ngano be dispatched after his really, really fast early pace. But the surprising factor here is that Bernard Kameli, the man who was running alongside Berta once they'd reeled in Ngano, the surprising thing is that he's been dropped this quickly.
So it looks like the top male is catching up to Rachel and Laura.
There you go.
Lead, and that means he's getting very close to the lead female.
Yeah, in fact, there you can see behind the lead women, you can see the truck that is preceding the lead men. So he is closing the gap very quickly. And
Rachel is looking strong on the camera there, and there's third place on the women's side.
Gladys Kimena is now in the sights of Endemlak Berta. And another factor here, Eric, if this was a single-sex race, Berta wouldn't have anybody to focus on. I mean, obviously, the prospect of winning this gold label 10K here in Ottawa would be a huge prize, but it's quite useful for him that having gone to the front, he's got an opportunity
Absolutely,
to reel
Rob.
in the athletes up ahead.
Definitely, that helps a lot.
Alia Mohammed has broken away a little bit from Edith Chalimo in the women's race, with Endemlak Berta approaching both of them. He's passed every other elite woman except these two runners, and you can see Mohammed looking over her shoulder to see what the distance is between her and Chalima, and perhaps even wondering, where's the lead man in this race? Is he closing in on me? Just a few minutes left now.
Oh, look at the cadence of Berta. He's really accelerating up this hill. He's moving away from Kimena, who's in third place in the women's race, but perhaps for not too much longer, with the likes of Rachel Cliff trying to close her down. But Berta's really going for this.
He knows he has the men's title, and he's now working extra hard to get the overall title.
We're going to know all the answers in the next 3 or 4 minutes as the lead athletes head towards the finish line in the Ottawa 10K.
Well, this is the kind of finish that all of you guys who are involved in the race wanted. It's IAAF gold label status. It's one of only 4 10Ks in the world to have this status, and one of the reasons is that the organisers worked so hard, and the likes of Manny Rodriguez put so many weeks and hours as a volunteer into making sure these races are absorbing right the way to the end, and it certainly looks as though that's going to be the case again this year.
Looks like we now have a camera on the lead Canadian, which is Kevin Blackney.
Okay, and we can just see in the sights of Endemlak Berta the number 2 woman in the race, Edith Chalimo. So he's going to be very soon closing in on Chalimo and then on Alia Mohammed, who is the lead woman.
This is a good run from Mohammed. Her personal best, 32.48. If she can keep this going, it would be one of the biggest wins of her career. And I don't say that lightly, bearing in mind she won the Asian Games Championship over 10,000 meters on the track 4 years ago. There are some big scalps here, most notably Edith Chalimo, who looks as though she has been beaten despite starting the race as the favourite to take this.
So the 3 athletes who are still in contention here in the race are approaching the finish line. Not many turns left on this course. They won't change roads. They're on Queen Elizabeth Drive. There's a curve in the road before they head to the finish line. But very soon we will be seeing first among the men and first among the women approaching the finish line. We just don't know in what order that will happen. Will it be Berta catching Mohammed, or will Mohammed hold off the lead man?
Keep an eye on the clock as well. The women's course record is 30.56 with Gladys Chirono. The men's course record has stood for 9 years to the Reba Merger, 27.24.
And on the men's Canadian side, Evan Esselink, who I mentioned earlier, a former training partner of mine, he's just pulled ahead of Kevin Blackney.
All right, we can see now that Berta is closing in on Mohammed. So that's Berta in the front, and that's Mohammed in the front, I should say, and Berta, who's just about to pass her now and head towards the finish line.
She just looked behind and she saw him.
She's been doing it constantly. I know it must be hard not to do that in the context of the race and the fact that we have got this 3-minute 40 gender gap. So many times she's been looking over her shoulder, Alia Mohammed, costing herself the distance. Well, last year,
and now
the leading women hung on, but it's going to be the elite men this time with the honours.
This is a really good run.
She looked over her shoulder again there after Berta passed her, so now she's worried about whether she's going to be the top woman or not. Here comes Berta. What a sprint to the finish by Andamlak Berta, the 19-year-old Ethiopian. Just a few meters to go now for both the men's title and the gender challenge at the Ottawa 10k. Andamlak Berta is the winner. What a run. And now here comes Alia Mohammed, the top woman, just a few seconds later. I don't think we saw any course records broken, but two very good times.
Two excellent runs, not quite to be the course records. Chalimo takes second. What was that? 31.47 unofficially. Just waiting to see whether we'll get another elite woman home inside 32 minutes. Not to be this time.
So Rachel...
What a race here for the finish among the second, third, and fourth men across the finish line. We saw Kameli in that group and Ziani. And now we're going to have the next woman approaching the finish line, and it is Gladys Kamena. And then the American Thweet. And there's Rachel Cliff, who's going to capture the Canadian title.
In around 32.24. Very good time.
New PB on the roads, and that's in line with what she's been doing time and time again since the Commonwealth Games, where she finished just behind Natasha Wodak. Cliff's season continues to get better and better. PB on the track at 5,000 and 10,000, and now a lifetime best on the roads here. That was an absolutely brilliant run from Rachel Cliff.
Lots of excitement at the finish line as we see Andamlak Berta win the men's race and also capture the gender challenge. Rachel Cliff, the Canadian women's champion. There's Abraham Kipyatic crossing the finish line.
Yeah, just coming home inside 29.5 minutes. It's been a brutal day for some of these men, partly because of that insane pace set at the beginning by Bernard Ngeno, who was very, very tired at the end.
There's Hisham Amgar of Morocco, who has just crossed the finish line. And now Berta at the finish line with the Ethiopian flag.
Eric, he is a very, very exciting young talent. When you bear in mind, he's still only 19. I thought he ran really well at the World Champs last year for 10th behind Mo Farah and all the best of the rest. A great performance from him. He's a young runner with great maturity.
Natasha Wodak has just crossed the finish line. Sorry, Art.
Just it's hard to believe he is 19, and yeah, I think with his consistency right now, really good things are in store for him. Looks like Evan Esselink, top Canadian.
Here he comes.
Good running from him. What was that, around 30:30? Got a half marathon PB of 64.08 at Houston. He was just outside the world's top 100 in the world half in Valencia.
They managed to get a Canadian flag to Evan Esselink, but they didn't manage to stretch the tape across for him to break as he crossed the finish line. But he is unofficially the Canadian champion. There are a lot of people doubled over at the finish line, one or two lying on the ground among these elite athletes who have just crossed. Two Canadian men in the top 10 at the 10K at Ottawa race weekend. Let's take a look at the unofficial results. And it was quite a finish for Andamlak Berta. And for a long time, Rob, we saw him running with Kameli and then just broke away with a couple of kilometers to go.
Yeah, I think that's one of the surprising outcomes. We knew that Berta had class because he'd run under 60 minutes for the half, and I thought he ran really well at the 10,000 metres at the World Champs last year, but it was the manner in which he pulled away from Kameli, who has at his best run 27.10. And Gaino did really well to hang on for a podium spot by a tenth of a second, just out-dipping Raider, the veteran from Morocco, sometimes better known as Al Arabi. He's been around a long time. And Ziani, the former winner, not able to get on the podium this time in 5th. But Esselink and Kevin Blackney coming in 9th and 10th. Blackney was performing just outside 30 minutes when he was 6th in Vancouver, so he's got another top 10. That's another good consistent run for him. 2 Canadians in the top 10. I think that's good going.
And look at how close 2nd, 3rd and 4th are. 1 second, less than a second separating the 2nd, 3rd and 4th athletes to cross the finish line on the men's side. All of them, though, more than 30 seconds behind Berta. So that ended up being a gap of 35 seconds in the end. That's quite a gap in a 10K race. All right, and there is a look at the women's finishing times. And we've got 5 Canadian women in the top 10, including Rachel Cliff finishing in 5th place. Very strong performance for her. And we saw Alia Mohammed holding off as long as she could Berta, who was the charging men's leader, but she wasn't able to do that. She still did win the race, and she is the one who emerged, Rob, from that group of 4 runners who were leading the pack for so long.
It was a really good run from Mohammed, because I think on paper the 27-year-old, the Ethiopian who represents the United Arab Emirates, I don't think she would have been the favourite for that. Edith Chilimo would have fancied it, and it's quite strange. Again, yes, the humidity notwithstanding, Chalimo went through 10K en route to a brilliant half marathon inside 31 minutes. So it's odd that with that kind of 10K split in a half marathon, it's strange that she still hasn't broken 31 minutes in a 10K proper. Kimena was very, very tired. And look at that, Thweet was only just off the podium. The Kenyan just hung on by just under a second and a half from Kimena. And Rachel Cliff, I think she'll be delighted with that. She's had a great season so far. She's building on 9th in the Com Games. Natasha Wodak was 5th, but I think in the 2 months that's transpired since the Gold Coast, Cliff has really, really upped her game. She must have had a great winter, and a great winter is becoming an excellent spring. It's going to be brilliant to see what she can do on the track.
As a Canadian distance fan, looking at that board right there and seeing in a gold label 10K race, seeing 5 Canadians in the top 10, that's really impressive to me. I'm delighted to see that on the women's side.
All right, our Timothy Walker is standing by with the women's winner, Alia Mohammed.